of the committee. To my left, I want to thank this lady, John of a woman to my left. She works with her early childhood education. And I introduced Senate Bill 47 because all experts agree that a child's brain develops between birth and 4. 90% of the child's brain develop. And I wanted to do something this session for early childhood education. And maybe the bill that I introduced, well, actually, obviously, the bill that I introduced originally didn't meet the mark. And so I got all of the stakeholders led by this gentlelady to my left, and I put them in a room and I said, I want you all to come up with something that would work. And so they came up with a plan, and I think all the stakeholders were on board. We got lobby, we got everybody. And because I really believe that we have to deal with these kids early in life. And not wait until they are 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years of age. And so they put together this bill that's before you. And I wanted 3-year-olds. They said, no, that's too early. So now we deal with 4-year-olds. And so it's a mixed provider model. They do it in East Baton Rouge Parish. They use that as the model that they patterned this bill after. It's full day, year-round. They partnership with local providers, and I'm pleased with it. It's not all I wanted, but it's a good start. And so I'm pleased today to present it to you, and I want to yield the floor because I know you got a 3-minute rule to Libbie Sonnier.
Good morning.
Ms. Sonnier.
I'm Dr. Libbie Sonnier, Executive Director of the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children. We appreciate the opportunity to work with Senator Fields and other stakeholders on SB 47, and we are very pleased to lend our support to this amended legislation. We believe this bill balances the need for greater access to quality pre-K with the need to ensure that existing child care providers are supported and that the supply of infant and toddler care is protected. We appreciate that there are provisions for both economically disadvantaged children and all other 4-year-olds based on a sliding scale. We appreciate that the amendment requires the prekindergarten to be full day, year-round, which is what working families need and which may reduce in learning loss and help children enter into kindergarten ready to go. Finally, we applaud the sponsor for including provisions requiring oversight from the Department of Education and regular reporting requirements so we can study how this measure is impacting the number of children served in our state. As you may already know, child care is often the most expensive item in a family's budget, and when families cannot afford reliable quality care, it impacts all of us. Robust replicated studies show that our state economy loses $1.3 billion a year due to child care breakdowns. The fact is this, that families cannot access quality, reliable early care and education impacts all of us. And while this amendment is a step in the right direction for 4-year-olds, I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that there are infants, toddlers, and 3-year-olds. The problem is even worse, with less than 30% of at-risk children able to access quality programming. Again, I have to thank Senator Fields for crafting an amendment that protects the ability of the child care providers to serve those youngest children while expanding pre-K for more 4-year-olds. These sorts of thoughtful solutions will help advance Louisiana, and we urge you to support this legislation.
Thank you. We do have one more green card wishing to speak, Marcus Thomas with LAE. Marcus, you want to come on up? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'll be brief. We know the earlier you
Introduce yourself, please, sir.
I'm sorry. Marcus Thomas, Louisiana Association of Educators. We all know the earlier you start the education of a kid, the better off they are, the more chances they have to, the more likely they are to read by the 3rd grade. And we all know the statistics of, what happens to kids that can't read by the 3rd grade. They end up dropping out of school and so forth and so on. So with the state's early literacy focus and Senate Bill 47, this bill will change the trajectory of many future generations, and we definitely support this bill. And we take our hat off to Senator Fields for working with all stakeholders and getting to the point where we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Back on the bill, and Let's see. Representative Freiberg has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I addressed this earlier with Dr. Sonnier. I agree with you. That is a superstar right there, and we love her advocacy for our state. My question was, this is a sliding scale. I like the idea of providing different avenues of early childhood, pre-K. Who pays for this? Does this end up being a district expense? Is this a state?
It's paid for by, you can use, like in East Baton Rouge Parish, they use LA $4, they use Title $1, so it can be used from some even use, local tax dollars.
So it would be up to the school system to find the dollars to provide for these students.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And it's not mandatory that they actually is mandatory that they come up with a program, but it's not a mandatory implementation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Amity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry. Senator Fields,
Yes,
thank you
ma'am.
for being here this morning. I have a question about some of the language on the bottom of page 1. The last line includes the phrase "shall work to develop," and normally we see language like that in a resolution, but this is putting it into statute. And I just wondered, what are the parameters? How do we know that they have in fact worked to develop? I mean, talk to me about the language.
Actually, we did Senator Smith put an amendment on. I think it was a floor amendment. He changed the word "develop" to "implement."
So it would say "work to implement."
Work to develop. I mean to implement.
Okay. The version we have in front of us right now says "shall work to develop."
This should be a floor amendment. Change the word "develop" to "implement."
Okay. Mr. Chair, don't we normally get the version that has
We
all
do,
the-
and I'm looking on the computer now, and it still does say shall work to develop a
I'm
mixed
sorry.
provider.
It was "implement," and he changed it to "develop."
Okay.
Okay, well then that comes back to my question of, we normally see that kind of language in a resolution like an urgent request. So this is going into statute. So what are the parameters so that we will know whether they are achieving this?
They report to the Department of Education.
So it's simply by their report. And so what if they don't? What action is taken if they don't abide by this?
Well, the Department of Education would report to the legislature, and the legislature would then hold hearings.
Interesting. And whenever we were talking a moment ago about the funding, you mentioned that this would be completely funded at the local level and that the locals could possibly use LA4, Title I, or local tax dollars. Every time we try to require something of schools, the pushback that we get in here is it's an unfunded mandate. So here we're looking at a bill that's going to require all the funding to be local. And when I talk to locals, all of their funding is currently in use.
Representative Amity, it's not a mandate. It's for them to start working towards getting to a point that you have basically universal 4-year-old programming. Additionally, what we have in our tool chest for funding for early care and education is an early childhood education fund. And so if locals raise local dollars to help support 4-year-olds, and there's enough money in that state fund, they can get a dollar for dollar match. And so there are mechanisms to help fund this. But again, this is a May, and to get us really a framework to be able to onboard the number of children we need to serve in this state. And this will be a demonstration with the 4-year-olds, and hopefully we'll learn a whole bunch, and so we can keep going with our youngest learners. Again, to Senator Fields' point earlier, we know that 90% of brain development happens by age 4. We have to be able to do something.
Okay, thank you, Representative Amity. Vice Chairman Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Fields, thank you so much. We've been bannering certain words around, but as my good friend, Brother Tarver, would say, this has the propensity to be that wow moment that we talked about. So thank you so much for this legislation. Thank you so much for your advocacy and what you do. I guess my question is, how does this, what's in you just comes out. So there's nothing new under the sun. That's what I was taught, and that's what I believe. You mentioned EBR. How does it look relative to, some of our more challenged parishes like Claiborne or Bienville or East Carroll? Some of the, how would this look per se regarding this mixed provider, and what are they doing per se? Yes, ma'am.
So the opportunity here is for districts that maybe there are not enough quality childcare centers in their parish in your more rural areas. It allows the school districts to partner with childcare providers that could be around their area to help provide these 4-year-old programming. The tenet of this bill really is to make sure that little people are in the best possible environment that they can be. And that's typically in childcare, but also understanding there are childcare deserts, and when those deserts are in place, at no fault of anybody's, that they can, the school district can help provide more early care and education to these young children. We have 60% of our kindergartners not entering into kindergarten ready to learn.
Okay.
This is a good step in that direction.
So it's in collaboration to
Yes,
what
sir.
we have. Okay.
Absolutely.
Because that was my other concern, the Head Start programs all around and what have you.
We need everybody.
Yes, ma'am. And I love the phrase, sitting up here, we get I love that, little people. I just love that.
They're the
Thank
best
you so
people.
much. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman.
At the appropriate time, I move favorable. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you for the motion. Representative Phelps.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I was thinking the same thing along the lines with Representative Jefferson. Some of our Head Start programs do have half-day programs. They will continue to have that. We're just asking our school systems to provide full
Correct.
day. I think that is a great thing. And maybe I can talk to you off record, because I did have conversation with some districts who closed pre-K schools, and when you talk about little people, they're made for them, and it's their own little environment, and it was a lack of attendance. And I've been talking about that since I've been here. Like, how do you have, we're pushing early Head Start pre-K from the state level, but this district is saying their enrollment is low.
I think we have a couple of issues there.
Okay.
One is what this bill helps address. It's full day, year round. And so many of the 4-year-old programs in the school districts are, they're full school days, but don't go into the evening hours, and they're in the school calendar. So this bill helps address, make sure that families have what they need, which is year-round, day long. And it's the ability to help touch all the 4-year-olds on a sliding fee scale. And we know that our 4-year-olds that are most at risk, we need to make sure that we cover them.
Okay.
And this allows that to happen.
Did I miss the year round? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sort of like the school you attended, Senator, in Shreveport,
Yes.
when you announced it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Phelps. Representative Tarver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Senator Fields, thank you for deferring 177. I was a little concerned about that, and I'd like to visit with you about that whenever we have some time. I just got a little bit of concern about it, but thank you for deferring it. But on this bill, are you a grandparent?
No.
No,
not yet.
man.
I can't
Look,
wait
you-
to be one.
The thing about being a grandparent is you get to see those little people, really get to see them. And but the challenge with that is, they're not all alike. And I know there are a lot of needs out there, but then there are also needs, and I appreciate the fact that it's not mandatory for everyone to attend. If I understand, I guess let me ask this: it's not mandatory for attendance. Am I correct? Didn't you say that for all the 4-year-olds and at some point 3-year-olds? But it is mandatory that the school get ready and have it, or that the district, get ready and have a plan to deal with it. Am I understanding that correctly? That's what this, because I'm curious about the May, you said it, I think I'm not trying to steal your words, but I think you said it's a may. But if I read the instructions, it was a requires, which is more
requires
appropriate.
piece of it is the data to make sure that who we're serving,
To be ready.
where the gaps are. This bill is a framework to help us get ready to be at a point as a state that we have the ability to do universal.
So it's almost like Senator Foyle's bill, where you got to get ready for when the money and the
It's a
cameras
good
get.
runway.
It's a good, yeah. So in the standpoint of what I was getting at is I got a 4-year-old grandson and 4-year-old twin grandboy and granddaughter. The twins are definitely not advanced enough to be ready to leave their mama. And I know this is not true of everybody, but it's just, my point is that they're not all the same. And so to require them all necessarily to be that quick out might not be, fully correct.
This bill wouldn't require them to
Yeah.
do anything.
So I think that was all I had. Thank you. I appreciate you guys' work.
Thank you, Representative Tarver. Representative Amity again.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to speak one more time. As we're discussing the bill, I keep hearing how this is optional, that's optional, the only requirement is the reporting. But in looking through the bill, I'm seeing several shalls, not only the one at the bottom of page 1, there's also one on line 20 of page 2, line 26 of page 2, and I'm still finding more shalls. So it doesn't appear to be very optional to me. This seems more like a mandate.
Okay, you said bottom of page 2. Which line are you?
Okay, I'm sorry. Bottom of page 1. That was where we were just discussing a moment ago.
Okay, let's take them one at a time. The bottom of
Okay.
page 1.
Yes,
which
line 18, shall work to develop.
Yeah, shall
So-
work to develop a mixed provider.
Yes. And let me go back to the next one. The next one is on page 2, line 20.
This is really about the mixed delivery model, so that it's not that the districts are serving the 4-year-olds themselves, because we know when the LA4 program came into being, it crushed the childcare industry, because those 4-year-olds are the ones that help pay for the younger children.
Well, ma'am, not to be rude, but because there's a timer going, let me just point out that on page 2, line 20, the shall says the board shall ensure. So that's another shall. That's a mandate. And then on page 2, line 26, we have the city, parish, or other local school board shall work to ensure. So these are a lot of shalls, and that's why I'm asking, is it optional or is it a mandate? Because shall usually means a mandate.
Okay, you want us to address them now? So you can address.
Sure. So really this is about, if a district is going to do this, that the shalls are there to ensure that they're working with the childcare industry.
So right now a district could see this whole thing if it passes and say, no, we're not doing that. I don't read it that way. And so it's a mandate, and it's required that the locals fund it. So those are my concerns. But thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. The board is clear. I have one more question by Representative Brass.
I'll be brief, Mr. Chairman. Just want to commend you, Chairman Fields, for your commitment to the cause as far as continuing to educating our kids from birth all the way up to graduation from high school, and definitely applaud and thank you for your continued work that you're doing across this great state. And I'm definitely excited about the program. I'm going to be a champion along with you as far as trying to implement it along the rural parishes. One thing I was happy to see is the year-long component to it. So if you can you elaborate on how that looks? I guess with the intertwine of the mixed provider system with the school system and the private daycares, as far as the year-round.
So childcare operates year-round anyway. And that's what we know, that working families and families that are in school, that they need to have year-round quality early care and education. And so what it allows the districts to do is to make sure that they're partnering with those quality early care and education centers that are already doing year-round full-day programming.
Okay, so the kids would actually be housed at those off-site facilities.
Yes, sir.
As compared to them having to go to the campuses during the
Right,
summer.
unless there was a school district like East Baton Rouge Parish that has empty classrooms, and they're partnering with a quality child care provider to provide
the facility.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In East Baton Rouge Parish, they use the actual school campus, but they have the option under this bill
Okay.
to come up
Okay.
with their.
Thank you, Representative Brass.